What's up fam, my name is Tech and welcome to my Mass Effect 3 multiplayer guide for the human Adept. In this video, I intend to document my research on the class as well as hopefully spread awareness that people are still playing this game. If you have any advice for me or other new players, please drop a comment, and I'll be dropping links to useful information in the description. So, the human Adept. For their overall movement and stats, they have the standard human stuff. They can sprint, roll, and use cover, and they have 500 health and shields by default. Its two passive trees, Alliance Training and Fitness, have the usual weapon and power bonuses as well as melee and durability boosts. First up for your active abilities is Singularity. On activation, you launch an arcing projectile that creates a zero gravity sphere on impact. While this field is active, any unprotected enemies who touch it will be lifted, allowing you and your team to attack them freely. Protected enemies will be staggered on hit, and if they remain in the area, they may be staggered more than once. If they lose their shields or barriers while standing in the radius, they will be lifted. This makes it worth throwing out at any infantry enemies. It'll deal damage over time to any enemies in the field, however this damage is negligible. All enemies, protected or not, will be primed for a biotic combo as long as they remain in the active area. However, they will only be primed once per Singularity. By default, this ability lasts for 8 seconds, but perk 4A increases that duration to 20 seconds. This does not increase the duration of the lift effect, so I tend to prefer 4B Radius as it makes it more likely to hit multiple targets. At rank 6B, you can make it so that your Singularity will detonate when it dies. This will allow it to detonate power combos, which is pretty useful. Keep in mind this is anti-synergy with the duration perk if you choose to use it. Your second ability is Warp. It throws an arcing projectile that hits one target, dealing 75% damage on hit and the rest over 10 seconds. It does 1.5 times damage to armor and 2 times damage to barriers, but it only does half damage to shields. It's both a primer and a detonator, and it can also stagger and panic enemies similar to Incinerate. And it weakens armor and stops health regeneration. This ability is all positives, and it's a staple of any class that has it. That being said, there are some caveats to the perk choices it has. 1. The lasting damage perk at rank 5 increases warp duration to 16 seconds, but that only applies to the debuffs it provides, not the damage over time. The dot is fixed to 10 seconds. And for rank 6 exposed, the damage bonuses are not applied on the first cast of warp. They affect subsequent casts if they hit during the initial duration. Your final ability is Shockwave. This ability shoots a wave of biotic explosions in a line away from you. It serves as a detonator for all power combos and can even be a primer with its rank 6 lifting Shockwave evolution. With its rank 5 detonate, it becomes the highest damage detonator you can get with this class. It even has the utility of being able to go through walls, so you can throw it from safety. If you're playing on PC, rank 4B Radius is bugged and it makes it not hit enemies consistently, so make sure not to take that perk. So now onto the builds. This class has some very synergistic abilities, so the way you build them is very much up to preference. Usually you'll only see minor tweaks here and there. If you want to pack as much damage as you can into each of your abilities, you can run something like this. Here you take Radius, Lift Damage, and Detonate for Singularity, Damage, Expose, and Pierce for Warp, and Force, Detonate, and Lift for Shockwave. And then put 5 ranks in Alliance Training for the power damage. In this build you'd be relying on the base damages of your abilities to do the most damage. You would also be getting biotic detonations, but they wouldn't be as powerful as they could be. This build could probably do well on bronze and silver, but on gold and platinum it would fall off because power damage doesn't scale well to the health pools of the enemies in gold plus. Combo damage does scale based on the difficulty, so if you plan to do gold plus, this build might do better for you. Here you want to forego the final point in Singularity and instead of lift damage, take recharge speed. For warp, take detonate, expose, and recharge speed. And for shockwave, go force, detonate, and recharge speed. Here we put minimal points into Alliance Training because combo damage does not scale with power damage bonuses, so it's not really necessary. We use the remaining points to get all the durability from Fitness. The main goal of this build is to be able to sling spells as fast as possible, and if you have all the right bonuses, you can get all 3 abilities to under 2-second cooldowns. Like most power-based classes, you're open to choose any weapon that gives you a low weight loadout. SMGs and heavy pistols tend to be preferred here. With this being a class that has warp, there's a glitch that needs to be mentioned here. Incendiary rounds have a bug that basically makes them stack with other damage over time abilities into one. And when you use it after hitting with warp, they stack together into one hugely damaging warp effect. This makes rapid firing weapons very strong with this combo. If you want to know more about this, I'll put a link to a post from the Mass Effect CoOp Reddit page which describes this in great detail. Some weapon suggestions would be the Phalanx or the Carnifex. Or if you want to use the Warp Incendiary bug, the Shuriken or the Geth Plasma SMG will work well. Also note that this class is not great at stripping shields, so the Acolyte can be a good choice as well. This class has some of the most flexible combos in the game, and the main thing you want to be aware of is your distance from the opponents. That distance will be the main determining factor in the combos you try to use. If they are at long range, you want to Singularity then Warp. If they're at mid range or closer, you can use Warp then Shockwave. Or if you chose the lifting shockwave perk, you can get combos off very close to you doing shockwave warp. You're most effective when holding choke points, as you can throw out a singularity and continually throw shockwave down the hall. Enemies will not only take a lot of damage, but they will be heavily crowd controlled as they try to reach you. You can have some trouble with enemies that try to flank you, as singularity is a slower projectile than most and it tends to miss at close range, and warp is single target. Shockwave is your best option up close, but it tends to be a little buggy. Two good choices for ammo powers are the aforementioned Incendiary Ammo and Disruptor Ammo. Incendiary does huge amounts of damage as mentioned before, and Disruptor rounds cover for your weakness of not being able to strip shields well. It also makes enemies more vulnerable to your crowd control. In my opinion, this class is strongest against Reapers and is equally effective against the other three factions. Reapers have mostly armor and barriers, which you are effective against. Many are also affected by your crowd control, and they bunch up a lot, which makes your AoE strong. I think against all the other factions there are several positives and negatives against you, so they tend to be even in my opinion. This class pairs well with classes that can distract or disrupt enemies so you don't get aggro. With that being said, I'll put out a video on the Human Vanguard next week. If you like this video, please drop a like so the YouTube algorithm lets other people know people are still playing this game. And if you want to continue learning this game with me, I'll be making more of these guys in the future. Later fam.